Bismillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbi yassir wa la tu'assir wa tammim bil khair. Urahhibu bikum fi darsin jadidin. Let's begin lesson number 18. And as we can see over here in lesson number 18, we start with the verb al-fail. As we know, it's not something new to us, but also we should know that the verb in Arabic language is very diverse and very rich. Now there are few things that we need to know, and most of the things you already know about the verb. As we started, we came to know that normally we start with the past tense. So every verb, or like we can say most of the verbs in Arabic, they have al-madi, the past form, and al-madari, the present form. For example, nasara, yansuru. Then if a verb has past and present, then normally it also has active form, which is al-ma'lum, or we say al-ma'ruf, and it has the passive form, which is al-majhul. So we say nusira yunsaru, so that will be the passive form. And then also we have the command and we have the prohibition. So command is al-amr and prohibition is, so basically this is fi'l al-amr and this is fi'l al-nahi. So we say unsur and la tansur. So these are the things that we have already learned about the verb. In today's lesson, we are going to learn about the two forms or two new forms, which are al-lazimu, that is intransitive verb, and al-muta'addi, which is transitive verb. Al-lazimu, it does not need object, and al-muta'addi, it always needs an object. So we have past form and the present form, madi and madari. Then we have active and passive, al-ma'lum wal-majhul. And then we have al-amr and al-nahi, which is command and prohibition. And then we can see further classification that a verb can be intransitive and transitive. So most of the times these are the four things which we need to know about every single verb in Arabic language. As we mentioned that transitive and intransitive is al-fi'l al-lazimu, which basically does not require maf'ul bihi. So when we say dhahaba hamidun, Hamid went, the meaning is clear, so we don't need the object. But when we say sa'ala hamidun, Hamid asked, so now we have to bring in what? Did he ask something or did he ask someone? So we say sa'ala hamidun bilalan, Hamid asked Bilal. Or we can say sa'ala hamidun su'alan, Hamid asked a question. So now we need maf'ul bihi, we need an object. And that's why it is called al-muta'addi, or we call it transitive. And if you remember that we discussed that it's about, like we say, the transit flight. The transit flight means that you have to stop on one destination and then from that destination you will go to the other destination. But when we say in transit, that means it's like direct flight and we don't have to stop. There are two questions. When we ask these questions, it is easy to know if the verb is lazim or muta'addi. So what was the action performed on, and who was the action performed on? So what was the thing that the action was performed on, and who was the person who received the action, or the person who was the receiver of the action? So now if we continue with these two questions, like what was the action performed on and who was the action was performed on, if either of the above two questions is a valid question for the verb, then it is a transitive verb. So if we know like what and who, what or who, they are like the receiver of the action, then that means that the verb is transitive. That means it needs object. For example, we say shariba hamidun. Now we need to know like what did he drink. So we say shariba hamidun al-ma'a. So Hamid drank water. So now the question is, what did he drink? What was the action performed on? So the action was performed on water. So that's why we will say that this is a transitive verb. Similarly, we say Sami'a Hamidun al-Adhana, and when we read it with the rules of the tajweed, then we will say Shariba Hamidun il-Ma'a, and similarly we will say Sami'a Hamidu nil Adhana. So whenever we have tanween and after that we have al, then a small noon is inserted, and then we have to recite it as Shariba Hamidu nil Ma'a and Sami'a Hamidu nil Adhana, which is restricted to the tajweed of the Quran, whereas in modern standard Arabic, we will simply say Sami'a Hamidun al Adhana. Hamid heard the call to the prayer. So now again, what was heard? Adhan was heard. So that means this is also transitive because there is something that the action was performed on. And so that's why we call them al-fi'lul muta'addi. Muta'addi means to surpass, to go beyond. So that means the action goes beyond the subject or the fa'il. So we have Sami'a Hamidun. Hamid is the subject, but the action has gone beyond Hamid. It has gone to the adhan, so that's why it is called al-muta'addi or transitive verb. Whereas when we say kharaja Hamidun, Hamid left, and jalasa Hamidun, this is called intransitive verb, al-fi'lu lazimu, and it does not need any object. I hope it's clear. Now, basically, the grammarians say that basically there are two types of objects. One is called direct object, as we can see over here. خَلَقَ اللَّهُ الْأَرْضَ. So, خَلَقَ is the fi'l, Allahu ismul jalala is the fa'il, and al-ard is the maf'ul bihi. So this is called maf'ul bihi sarih. Yani this is direct object. What should we call it? Direct object. So that's why it is called as-sarih. And then there is a kind of object which is indirect object. What is indirect object? It comes after a preposition. So basically, why do we call it indirect? Because it comes after a preposition. So we say kharaja Bilalun. Fine, kharaja Bilalun. Bilal left. But what or where did he leave from? So we say kharaja Bilalun min al masjidi. So Bilal left the masjid. Okay, so now we can see over here that after min we have al masjid. So that means that al masjid is basically the object and it is majroor, but we will say that this is mahallan majroor. Why? Because it came after min. So correction please. So it is majroor, but we will say it is mahallan mansoob. Mahallan mansoob, walakin when we talk about the haraka, as we can see here, it is majroor. Similarly, example from the Quran, ذهب الله بنورهم. Allah took away their light. So we can see over here, ذهب is the past tense, ismul jalala is the fa'il, and bi is harf jar, and nuri is mudaf, and him is mudaf ilayh, and the complete construction will be indirect object. So why do we call it indirect object? Because it comes after the preposition. For example, we say ذهب بلال إلى المسجد. So you say ذهبت إلى المسجد أو ذهبت إلى المدرسة or ذهبت إلى العمل. So whenever we have the preposition, then it is called indirect object, and it is majroor, but it is mahallan mansoob. Why it is mahallan mansoob? Because we know that all the objects are mansoob. So this is also some information that we need to know, that this is called غير صريح. غير صريح yani indirect object, and previously we have seen that the object is direct. So this is the difference between direct object and indirect object. An intransitive verb, which is basically lazim, can be changed into transitive verb al-muta'addi in the following ways, and we have learned it in the last two lessons, that whenever we take the first form of the verb, which is the original form or form number 1, or we say athulathi al-mujarrad, when we take it into form number 2, which is fa'ala, or when we take it into form number 4, af'ala, then it becomes muta'addi, then it becomes transitive. For example, nazala, he came down. So this is lazim. Nazala Bilalun, Bilal came down. But when we change it into form number 2, when we say nazzala, now what happened? Now it needs an object. For example, we say nazzalallahu al-Qur'ana. Nazzalallahu al-Qur'ana. So nazzala, and then after that ismul jalala is the file, and al-Qur'an is maf'ul bihi. So when we bring form number 1 into form number 2, then it becomes muta'addi. And similarly, when we take it into form number 4, anzala, it also becomes muta'addi. So we can also say that anzalallahu ta'ala al-Qur'ana, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down the Qur'an. Okay, now this is a rare verb which can be used in both forms. It's not possible that, or it's not necessary that every verb will be used in form 2 and form 4. Most of them are used, and this is one of the examples over here. Now, do you remember the difference between nazzala and anzala? What is the difference between these two? What is the difference between tanzil and inzal? When I introduced you to form number 2 and 4, I told you that there is a very major difference. Yes.
Well, just something.
Is gradual, step by step?
Yes.
Gradual or step by step, then we say nazzala. That's why Quran is also called tanzil. Tanzilum min Rabbil Alameen. So that means the Quran was revealed in 23 years and it was revealed gradually. Okay, what about anzala? That means something happened at once. Okay, can you give me example from the Quran? Inna anzalnahu fi laylatil qadr. Yeah. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says Inna anzalnahu fi laylatil qadr, that means it was all revealed in one night. That means from the 7th heaven to the 7th of the earth. So it was revealed from there to there. So that's why it is called inzal. So inzal means it was revealed in one night, and tanzil means that from the 7th or from the sky of the dunya, Ardus Sama, to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam through Jibreel alayhi salam, it was revealed in 23 years. So that's why it is called tanzil, and also it is called inzal. Dhahaba, he went. But when we say adhaba, it means to remove, or something that was removed, or something that was taken away from someone. And similarly, we have jalasa, that means to sit, and ajlasa means to make someone sit. To make someone sit. This hamza is called hamzatul ta'diya. Hamzatul ta'diya means that it changes a verb that is lazim, it changes intransitive verb into transitive verb. So this hamza has a specific name, and this hamza is called hamzatul ta'diya. That means it always changes a verb that is intransitive into transitive. So it changes fi'l lazim into muta'addi. So these are two ways that a verb can be changed from lazim to muta'addi. Similarly, the preposition be is also used to change a verb from lazim to muta'addi. So inna Allah yati bishamsi. So it is ata yati means to come, but when we talk about ata bi, that means to bring. Similarly, dhahaba bi, that means to take away. So dhahabtu bihi ilal madrasa, I took him to the school. So whenever we use the preposition of ba, then also the verb changes from lazim to muta'addi. So please remember this as well. So this is like some additional information. So when we change thulathi verb into form 2 and form 4, it becomes muta'addi. And similarly, when we use the preposition be, the verb also changes from lazim to muta'addi. Okay, now let's discuss a little bit more about taf'il. We have discussed that taf'il changes a verb that is lazim into muta'addi. We have seen that, right? Now here we have few more characteristics of from to of taf'il. It also signifies an extensive or intensive action. We have learned about intensive action. We have learned that in when we introduced or when we were introduced to taf'il. But what is extensive action? Let's see over here. So in Arabic, the first is called at-takthiru. Yani extensive action is called takthir. So takthir means kathara yukathiru takthiran. To do something or to make something happen in abundance. And then we have balagha yubalighu mubalaghatan. It is intensive, something that is like exaggerated. So mubalagha means to exaggerate something. Now let's look at the examples of extensive action. An extensive action is one done on a large scale or done repeatedly. So please remember that extensive action or al-kathir is something that is done on a large scale or something that is done again and again repeatedly. For example, قتل المجرم رجلا. The criminal killed a man. So we can see here قتل يقتل is form number 1. But when we take it into form number 2, it becomes قتل. So when we say قتل المجرم أهل القرية, then it means that the criminal massacred the people of the village. So here it is massacre, like he killed so many people. So when we take this form into form number 2, then it means that this is takthir, yani something happened in abundance. Similarly, if you say jultu fi hadha al-baladi, jala yajulu julna, that means to walk or to go around. So you say jultu, it's on the pattern of qala yaqulu. So you say qala yaqulu qultu. And similarly, you say jala yajulu jultu. Jultu fi hadha al-baladi, I went around this country. But when you say jawwaltu, jawwala yujawwilu tajwilan, when you take it into form number 2, when you say jawwaltu fi mashariqil ardi wa magharibiha, then you want to say that I traveled extensively all over the world. So it's like expression mashariqil ardi wa magharibiha. That's an expression that I like traveled all over the world. So now you can see here jala means to go around, but jawala, that means to travel extensively. So it is large scale and it is something repeated as well. Now one more example, fatahtul baba, I opened the door, regular form. But when you say fatahtu abwab al-fusuli, that means that I opened the doors of the classroom. So that means I opened at once, or I opened repeatedly, or one after the other, one after the other. So that's why you say fattahtu abwab al-fusuli, one after the other. Now look at the example from the Quran. وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابُ وَقَالَتْ هَيْتَ لَكَ. This is like the wife of instead Surah Yusuf, the wife of Amir al-Misr, yeah, when she closed all the doors. So if you see over here, وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابُ وَقَالَتْ هَيْتَ لَكَ, she closed all the doors. That means one by one, one by one. So she closed all the doors. So that's why the form that has been used over here in the Quran is غَلَّقَتْ. غَلَّقَ يُغَلِّقُ تَغْلِيقًا. So she closed all the doors one by one. Then we have عَدَّ الرَّجُلُ مَالَهُ, the man counted his money. But when we say عَدَّدَ الرَّجُلُ مَالَهُ, that means the man repeatedly counted his money. Okay, now what do we have in this surah? الَّذِي جَمَعَ مَالًا وَعَدَّدَهُ, who collects wealth and continuously counts it. So it's you see in the Quran, it's not عَدَّهُ, it is عَدَّدَهُ. That means he counts again and again and again, and continuously. So the person, like, he cares a lot about the money and he thinks if the wealth is finished, he is finished. وَلِيَعَاذَ بِاللَّهِ. And it's not the case, but if someone thinks like that and he keeps on piling up the money, it will not help him. So as you can see over here, عَدَّدَ is to collect something or to collect money in abundance or continuously. Here, who refers to mal. So alladhi, the one who, jama'a is the fail plus file, malan is maful bihi, and wa'addadahu is athani. So we can see over here. So in fact, addada is to collect, and who is again maful bihi. So someone who collects money again and again. So we have two examples from the Quran. وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابَ وقالت هيت لك, and then we have الذي جمع مالا وعدده. So now I hope it's clear that it also shows about something that happened again and again. This is one of the characteristics, which is called التكثير. Then the second characteristic is مبالغة, intensive action. Intensive action is one which is done thoroughly and with great force. So here it applies to the force. For example, you say كسرت الكوبة, I broke the glass. That's fine, just like something normal. But if someone says كسرت الكوبة, that means I smashed the glass. So كسرت الكوبة, maybe you just dropped it by chance and it broke. So you say I broke the glass. But when you say كسرت الكوبة, that means you did it on purpose and you smashed it or you banged it on the floor or against the wall. So that's why it is I smashed the glass. قطعت الحبلة, I cut the rope. And when you say قطعت الحبلة, that means I cut the rope to pieces. And now we have in Surah Muhammad the example كمن هو خالد في النار وسقوا ماء حميما فقطع أمعاءهم. So as we can see over here, can they be like those who will abide in the fire forever and will be given boiling water to drink that tears apart their intestines? فقطع أمعاءهم. So the water that will be boiling water and it will tear apart the intestines of the people of Jahannam. May Allah protect us. Allahumma ajirna minan nar, from the hellfire. So as we can see over here in the Quran, it is used as to tear apart. It does not mean to cut, but it means to chop into pieces. So these are two characteristics of Bab Taf'il. So now you might be thinking like why we are talking about If'al and Taf'il, because this lesson is basically combination of Bab Taf'il and If'al. So form number 2 and form number 4. Okay, now we are done with that. Now we move on to the next point of the lesson. Iyaka wal kilaba. So Iyaka wa, it's a combination. Iyaka wa, it's a combination, and after that there is a noun, and the noun is always mansoob. Why do we use it? We use it for warning. التحذير. So when you are going to warn a person from something, you say إياك والكلاب, means beware of dogs. This is called التحذير, yani warning. As we can see here, that note that the noun after the waw is mansoob. So after that, the noun will always be mansoob. And we know that iyaka, ka is basically the attached pronoun. So we can use the attached pronoun according to the person. If you're talking to singular masculine, you say iyaka. If you're talking to plural, and if you have men, you will say iyakum. If you're talking to singular feminine, you will say iyaki. And if you're talking to feminine plural, you will say iyakunna. So this is an expression. Please do not mix it with iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, because over there it means only you we worship. Over there it is a different expression, but here it's a different expression. Here it means that we are using this complete construction for the purpose of warning. So this is iyyaka wal kilaba, so it will be after waw, the noun will be mansoob. Please note it down. And then here is a very beautiful hadith. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Iyyakum wal hasada. Beware of jealousy. فَإِنَّ الْحَسَدَ يَأْكُلُ الْحَسَنَاتِ. For jealousy eats up good deeds. كَمَا تَأْكُلُ النَّارُ الْحَطَبَ. Just as fire eats up firewood. So that's why the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has warned us. He has given us a clear warning that we have to protect ourselves from hasad, from jealousy. So it's a disease of the heart, and these diseases of the hearts, they make us weak. So that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has warned us, or have warned us, that we have to protect our hearts, or try our level best to protect our hearts from all these diseases of the heart. Like we have hasad, jealousy, we have al-kadhib, which is like lying, and then we have ghiba, which is backbiting, and so on. So the list is very long, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from all these diseases of the heart. Innama. Do you remember something about innama? We have discussed in one of the previous lessons. Innama ana mudarrisun. I am only a teacher. Innama al-mu'minuna ikhwatun. Indeed, all the believers are brothers. We have discussed that example. So here, when we have this ma, this is the introduction of a different kind of ma. We have learned many kinds of ma, like ma and nafiya, and then there are some other kinds as well. So here we are learning this kind of ma, which means only. And here when you say innama ana madarisun, that means I am a teacher and nothing else. So what is basically innama? It's a combination of inna plus ma. What kind of ma is this? This is called ma al-kaffatu. That means the preventive ma. Kaffa yakufu kaffatan, to prevent something. So why we call it ma al-kaffatu? Because it prevents inna from rendering the following noun mansub. We know that the noun after inna is always mansub. Inna Allaha ghafurur rahim. But when we have innama, then after innama, the noun will be marfu' and it will not be mansub. Why? Because of ma. This ma has basically prevented inna from doing its action. So we have a beautiful hadith, the first hadith of Al-Bukhari, Sahih Al-Bukhari. Innama al-a'malu bin-niyat. Actions are judged only by the intentions. So here al-a'malu is marfu and not mansub. Also, unlike inna, the word innama is used in a verbal sentence. So it can be used with the verb as well. Innama yakdhibu, he is only telling a lie. And similarly, we have discussed this example in the previous lesson from the Quran. Innama ya'muru masajid Allahi man amana billahi wal yawmil akhir. Only those tend the mosques of Allah who believe in Allah and the last day. So as we can see here, innama ya'muru. So we can see over here an example from the Quran that it is also used with the verb. So innama can be used both with the verb and with the noun. However, inna is only used with noun. That's number one. Inna makes the noun mansub, but innama does not make the noun mansub. Also, it gives the meaning of emphasis, and it also gives the meaning of only. So when you want to emphasize the idea, you will use the expression or the word that is innama. So when you say innama ana mudarrisun, that means I am only a teacher. Wallahi, by Allah, is an oath. So this waw is waw al-jarrah, which is harf jar. That's why the noun that follows it is majroor. That's why we have the note over here that this is an oath. And whenever this waw is used in the Quran, this is waw al-qasmiyah, or we call it al-qasamu, which is used in the Quran, and the statement that follows the qasam is called jawab al-qasam. So this is very important to know that whenever we have waw, wallahi, it is oath, and every oath has its answer, jawab al-qasam. We will discuss it in the coming lessons in detail, but here we should only know that qasam always has jawab al-qasam, as we can see over here. If the jawab al-qasam commences with the madi, if it starts with the past tense and is affirmative, that means it's not negative, and that means it's not a question. If it is affirmative, yani it's a regular sentence, it should take the emphatic laqad. Then after this we have to use laqad. Two conditions. What are those two conditions? Jawab al-qasam, if it starts with the past, that's number one. And number two, it has to be affirmative. Then after that we have to use laqad. As we can see here in the example, Wallahi laqad farihtu kathiran. By Allah, I was greatly delighted. So we have Wallahi, and after that we have to use laqad. Why we have to use laqad? Because after that we have the past tense. Is it question? No. Is it negative? No. So that's why we have to use laqad after that. If, however, the verb is madi but negative, it does not take the emphatic particle, so it will not take the emphatic particle. So if it is wallahi laqad wallahi ma farihtu kathiran, then we don't need to use laqad with that, so we will simply say wallahi ma farihtu kathiran. But if we have we don't have ma after that, then we have to say wallahi laqad farihtu kathiran. Now a very important note with regards to the Quran. In the Quran, whenever a verse starts with laqad, it is always jawabul qasami of wallahi. So whether we have wallahi or not, in fact, there is no verse of the Quran that starts like this, wallahi, and then washamsi or wal qamari or wal asri. But whenever we have a verse of the Quran that starts with laqad, that means it is always jawabul qasam. For example, we can see over here, laqad kana lakum fi rasulillahi uswatun hasanah. Indeed, in the messenger of Allah, you have an excellent example. So laqad. So now we can see here that after laqad we have past tense, and this is not negative, this is not negative, and this is not a question. That means wallahi is mahdhuf. It is already over there, it exists, and this is wallahi is qasam, and laqad kana lakum fi rasulillahi uswatun hasana is jawabul qasam. Did you get the idea?
Yes, Ustad.
Okay, Alhamdulillah. So, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. So whenever we have the use of laqad, that means that this is jawab al-qasam and qasam is mahdhuf. Why, by the way, why qasam is used in the Quran? One more thing that you should know, that it is also used for emphasis only. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not need to take any oath. He is huwa ar-Rahmanur Rahim. There is no need for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, this is only to emphasize the importance of that thing for us. So when it is wal asr, so this is the time when the day or the it's like time for sunset. The day is about to finish. So that means that our life is about to finish. So innal insana lafi khusr. So indeed we are in loss. So why we have that wal asr? That means that this is to emphasize the importance of time. So that's why whenever there is oath in the Quran from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is for the purpose of emphasis. And it's not possible, or it's haram for us to take oath of anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the authority to use or to take the oath of whatever He likes, like ash-shams wal qamar wal asr wal shamsi wal duhaha wal qamari idha talaha. But we don't have any right to take the oath other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So whoever, according to the hadith, whoever takes an oath other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, faqad ashraka. Indeed, he has done shirk. So taking an oath other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a human being is a form of shirk. Alright, so we have completed the main points of the lesson. And in the next part of the lesson, we will cover the text. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.